We have a potent week full of planetary transits. In this week's astrology, Pluto will transit forward in Aquarius, allowing us to gain clarity about the last few years. Sagittarius season begins, allowing us to reach for better opportunities and new horizons. And a pre-shadow Mercury will make the most alignments over these next 7 days, giving us an idea of what to expect for this planet's regressive cycle. We have an interesting mix of vibes going on this week. Monday through Friday will bring in psychic vibes, family and friends, mental energy, ambitious tones, and emotional sensitivity. Because of the varying tenors over these next 7 days, our moods could feel like they're fluctuating, but also we might feel motivated to work on our goals and get back on track when it comes down to spiritual things. Then emotional sensitivity will reemerge from the 21st to the 22nd. Because of this, we'll have about 24 hours of uncomfortable energy occurring, and so we might need to take an adult time out and ground ourselves because our emotions may be all over the place and we could feel touchier than typical, leading to poor reactions and, as a matter of fact, reacting in a disproportionate manner to what's really going on. But at least this week is mixed bag compared to the last bunch of weeks where we've been getting hammered with harder energy. So let's look at these next bunch of days and see what we can expect. Don't forget to like and subscribe because it helps this channel grow. Also, if you're looking for a natal chart reading or intuitive coaching, the links will be in the description box below. And if you'd like to support the work of this channel, you could do so by buying me a fresh cup of coffee. The link will be in the description box below as well. Tuesday brings in a sense of permanency with Pluto transiting forward in Aquarius. So this is it. We are finally in Aquarius energy. This is not a drill. This planet will not dip in and out of Aquarius and move back to Capricorn. We have seen the finale of Pluto and Capricorn energy over this last month, and it's been quite a clusterfuck as a result. But that's what happens when we have a planet at the 29th degree, especially in cardinal energy, and especially with it being a planet like Pluto. So now that we're back at 0 degrees of Aquarius, Pluto and Aquarius, we can expect some reruns going on. In other words, over the last year and a half, we've managed to get to 2 degrees of Aquarius with Pluto and Aquarius. Our first round was back on March 23rd of 2023, and it stayed in Aquarius till June 11th of that year. And during that year, it only got to 0 degrees of Aquarius. Then from January 20th to September 1st, we got up to 2 degrees of Aquarius before this sign retrograded back into its last stint in Capricorn energy. So during these periods, we got a little taste of what might happen in Aquarius energy. It could have been a time of renewing things, especially old systems that are outdated and need a nice revamp. So it's like a period where we were reimagining what's no longer applicable. Some of this could have manifested as hints into what's to come in terms of scientific advancement, community development, anything to do with organizations, and any technological innovation. A pairing like this could have gave us the ability to uncover solutions to things that were previously unsolvable. So this could have marked the beginning phases of what's going to be a breakthrough later on in this next 20 years. Also, some themes that might have been more emphasized during these periods were transformation through non-romantic relationships. In other words, friendships, groups, affiliations, and other connections with like-minded individuals. I have noticed a surge in content about friendships and how to cultivate better friendships and to find people who are on the same wavelength as you, as well as just a surge in the popularity of platforms that emphasize group activities. Like Discord has been around for a while, but it really seems like it's been hitting its stride over these periods. And other platforms similar to that. But here we are now, and it's permanent, and we'll be here in this energy over the next 2 decades. I have a video and a podcast that I'm going to link below where I go into the full themes of what you can expect while Pluto is in Aquarius, and so of course that will be in the links below in the podcast and YouTube as well. But the signs that are going to feel this transit more than others will be the fixed modality for the next 20 years. Well, technically 19 years, but that's going to be Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius between all the degrees of these signs. So as this planet is inching through these next 2 decades, every one of the fixed signs will feel this transit as it reaches its points that hit your chart more so. And so if you have planets and chart points in this modality, you're going to feel this more than others. Pluto will be in Aquarius until May 8th of 2043. Circling back to Monday, over the next 24 hours, we've got a bunch of Mercury transits occurring, which we'll see a few more times since this planet is in its pre-shadow retrograde phase. The first one that's happening on the 18th is a Sesquiquadrate between Mercury and Mars, And so Mars also happens to be in its regressive phase. It's in its pre-shadow still, just like Mercury. And so with this, both planets will be interacting with each other during their retrograde cycles in a very complex transit. And what makes this complex is when we have retrograde situations, there tends to be miscommunication anyway, and this can overly inflate the need to run our mouths more than we would like to. And so if we feel like we're being direct, it may go wrong and not be received well by the person we're conveying this to. A lot of the time, the stuff that we're trying to articulate to other people may be things that we held in for a while and they need to be spoken, except there's a better way to do it, and we may think that we're doing it the right way, but we're coming off so wrong that it could lead to combativeness in our conversations. We need to also be aware of situations where people are trying to get a rise out of us, because energy like this can exacerbate situations with people who thrive on conflict altogether and unnecessary drama. But if someone's looking for a reaction, please don't give them the reaction that they're looking for. On the flip side of this energy though, this might be a time for advocating for others or standing up for yourself. So even though I'm saying do not react to people who are trying to get a reaction, in those situations, no. But if it's a situation where it's time to speak up, sometimes even if it's awkward and uncomfortable and may lead to confrontation, sure, it needs to be done and it's necessary. So there may be moments, especially with these retrograde energies, where you're called to speak up finally. Also with this energy, Mercury is opposing Jupiter on that same day, and so this tends to rev up awkward communication. This may rev up situations where people stretch the truth. So there tends to be an exaggerated feel to this. We also need to be aware of our patience levels, because in this energy, and especially with the Mercury-Mars situation, and then this compounded with that, it can be a day where we're having a low tolerance for people who either learn things slow or just don't talk fast enough. So we might need to check ourselves with that. Also, this can inflate intellectual arrogance or put us in situations where we're dealing with people who are excessively opinionated. So of course that can make it more uncomfortable. Also, because of the miscommunication within this energy and Mercury being in pre-shadow and Mercury also having that hard alignment with Mars, we really need to be aware that we're not blowing things out of proportion and misunderstanding people to a point where we flip out, because vibes like this can enunciate that sort of reaction, which is also another reason where I'm saying be careful if others are trying to get a rise out of you if you can help it. And with the messy energies that we have going on, especially with this Mercury opposed Jupiter situation, if you have something important that you need to sign up for, any documents, projects, paperwork, goals, essays for college, school, whatever, really try to stay on top of that and read all of the fine print, or make sure you're going over any data and correcting things, because energy like this tends to bring out the skimmer in all of us, where we think we have all the details, but we're really missing core information that we need. So try to go slow when it comes down to that kind of stuff, so that way you don't have any mishaps to correct during the retrograde, which is a big possibility with this one. By the time we get to the 19th, Mercury is going to make a trine with Chiron, which is another alignment we're going to see a couple of more times. But this one is more harmonious and may help us mend fences. It may help us mitigate certain issues that were occurring during these other alignments with Mercury opposed Jupiter, Mercury Sesquiquadrate Mars. But energy like this gives us a significant boost when it comes down to reconciliation. And so if there's something that went wrong maybe the day before, we're able to fix it in some sort of way if it's a very constructive situation. Energy like this can also help us work on how to calm our minds and how to discover better ways to develop coping mechanisms and clearing ourselves of negative self-talk. And because this is a Chiron situation, alternatively, this uplifting energy may help us help someone else. So it might be a day to help someone else clear their mind and give them some sort of pep talk. Continuing with Tuesday's energies, the sun's going to make a trine with Neptune. And so what this means is Neptune is slowing down and about to station direct. Anytime we have trines with the sun and the outer planets, also with Mars, it marks the beginnings and endings of the retrograde cycle. So when we're in the beginning phases of the retrograde, we see trines, marking the phase where the planet's coming out of station and gaining speed. And on the other side, in the ending phase, the planet slowed down to make a station. And because Neptune is the second to last planet from the sun, it'll take a few and a half weeks for it to make its station direct and go out of regressive motion. But even though this is a retrograde alignment, it brings in such an upbeat tone. note. It also brings in a surge of creativity and the need to engage in spiritual practices. And so this could be a period where we feel the need to connect to our higher selves, engage in things like art, maybe work on energy healings and clearings or sound baths, or an actual spiritual bath. But energy like this really helps us boost our confidence and self-assurance when it comes down to spirituality, mystical things, and anything to do with creativity and energy like this. And hopefully that energy is going to carry us through, because as we get to the 20th, we've got a spike of weird energy going on. Venus is going to make a sesquiquadrate with Uranus, and this could bring up situations where we have erratic patterns in terms of our relationships and finances. So when we were looking at the energy on the graph, the 21st to the 22nd is when we were seeing that emotional sensitivity. And this transit happens to be a contributing factor to that, because we do feel these over the course of the next bunch of days when we have alignments, not just on the day that they happen. And so we could be feeling this all the way up until about the 22nd. And so energy like this can bring about a jittery feeling when it comes down to our relationships, romantic relationships, platonic relationships, relationships of all kinds, our close one-on-one relationship. And so if there's some uncertainty, or there's been a lot of upheaval, or if we're dealing with unpredictable people overall, this can bring in discomfort. In romantic relationships, this can bring up problematic situations with people who are constantly seeking stimulation. In other words, people are constantly seeking new relationships and hopping from person to person, or other forms of commitment issues because they have this need for thrill. It can really rev up those types of things. Another way this can show up is through finances. And so we need to be aware of making sudden moves in this energy, making sudden moves when it comes down to relationship situations too, but also within our financial situations. In other words, if we're in a job that's limiting and we feel like we need to get out, we need to slow down and be patient and wait for the right time to make that kind of move, because not having a proper exit strategy in any of these situations can lead to more upheaval. Anytime there's a hard alignment with Uranus and any of the planets and we decide to abruptly make changes, it could have adverse effects. So that's just something that you want to be aware of within this energy. But on a more upbeat note, the sun is entering Sagittarius. Happy birthday to all the Sagittarians out there, and happy Sagittarius season. And with all the transits that we're having, we need this Sag energy. Sag energy is jovial and upbeat. We need the optimism that comes with this. Sagittarius energy is that light at the end of the tunnel, especially after going through rough times. That being said, as we leave the focus on difficult things method of Scorpio, we transition to a playful, let's not take things seriously style of Sagittarius energy. Scorpio season helps us face a lot of the drastic things and helps us focus on very unattractive truths. But for that reason, it helps us learn how to deal with situations that are holding us back, prior trauma, coping mechanisms, and other things that need intense inner work, so that way we can thrive and transform. And so once we go through an intense period like that, we start having a new lease on life and a very different perspective on how things ought to be. And so with those fresh insights and a positive outlook on what lies ahead, we emerge from a dark period and start embracing life to the fullest in Sag energy. And so this could be a period where we might feel more optimistic than we typically do. We might have more of a go big and go home sort of attitude. And even though Mercury's in Sag, where it's not the most happy and will be going retrograde, it still doesn't mean we won't be able to capitalize on these like Sagittarius vibes with the sun being here. And even with the transits it's going to make. Because yes, this is headed for some harder transits. However, we might still have moments of hope due to this optimistic Jupiter-ruled sign. One of the reasons why we have this no worries attitude in Sagittarius is our confidence gets pumped up to an extraordinary level, especially within the sun. The sun is our self-assurance and our ego. And so within this sign, we tend to think everything will work itself out for the best sort of attitude, and that we have so many possibilities and opportunities beyond the horizon. So this may help us if we're having moments where we're feeling low, because it eventually surges up the idea that luck is around the corner, or the whole thing of when one door closes, another one is going to open at some point. Socially, this surges up the need to mingle with others. And so maybe if we didn't have the bandwidth to really hang out with people during Scorpio season, although that's unavoidable sort of thing, this will be a period where we feel more open to that and we're seeking adventures with others. We're wanting to engage in some sort of get-together activities like throwing a party or linking up with friends and doing cool activities at various venues. Another thing with the social aspect of this is it's a time for humor and crazy chats and jokes because Sag energy puts us in the mood for amusement. So this could be a time when our interactions are more jovial and more exaggerated than typical. Another interesting social thing about Sagittarius energy is in the States, it falls around the time that we have Thanksgiving, always the week before Thanksgiving. And so it marks a period of grand scale generosity and big feasts and joyful celebrations, engaging with excessive amounts of food, alcohol, and other grandiose things and displays. It's also a time for travel as well. Sure, travel happens all the time, but during the holiday season, it tends to be a big surge in that. And Sagittarius is a Jupiter-ruled sign that's associated with travel, long-distance travel, which for those of us who live far away from home, is a time to visit relatives, friends, or vice versa. Also associated with the holidays within Sag energy is an opinionated nature, good, bad, or indifferent, and that's kind of a neutral expression within this energy tied to this time of year. Another neutral expression of this energy is the fear of missing out, and so the great thing about that is it gets you going after things, it gets you going to that event, applying for that job, applying for that scholarship, or anything that you feel like you need to act on now because you feel like you might regret it later. The problem with that is we can overbook ourselves and burn ourselves out. So that's something to be aware of in this energy. And since I'm at the neutral expression of this brings me to the lower vibration of the sun in Sagittarius. Speaking of feasts, overindulging is a thing that pops up. It surges up in this energy. And so that's something we need to be aware of. A pairing like this gets us in the celebratory mood. And so we need to be aware of our Jupiterian side that wants to go ham on some food and booze and other things that might end up causing us to feel not so good later. We also need to be aware of not taking things so seriously that we act irresponsibly, carelessly, and taking unnecessary risks that may not pay off later. So that's something that can get surged up in this energy, is the need to go after everything and then not exactly get that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow. And entitlement issues is something else that needs to be checked in this energy too, along with an overly honest disposition that leads to speaking in a way that's so blunt it hurts someone's feelings. Other than that, this is terrific energy and it's so fun and it's a time to really let our hair down. So really, let's soak this up. Just as the sun is entering Sagittarius, it's going to make a sextile with Pluto, which should help us wrap up Friday through Sunday on a higher note. And that's because this energy can be truly empowering, allowing us to feel confident and focus on the things that we want to achieve over the weekend. And so at least we're ending this week on a constructive note, other than how we have over the last bunch of weeks. Anyway, I hope you all have the best week ever. Later, and see you in the next episode.